Hello and welcome to this second episode of What's on Stage Sunday Afternoon Reviews. My name is Alex Wood, I'm the managing editor, and I'm just going to jump straight in just to say how amazing the Sondheim Gala was at the Sondheim Theatre. I was very lucky to be there, and I know there's been a lot written about how amazing it was. So I thought I'd just provide a few of my own personal exciting tidbits and also little secrets that I discovered by talking to some of the people involved in the production, and hopes for the future based on what I've heard. This was the West End concert that took place last Tuesday with a variety of stars including Bernadette Peters, Imelda Staunton, Judi Dench, Rob Brydon, Gary Wilmot, Clive Rowe. The list really went on and on and on, and across the 3 hours it was amazing as new stars just emerged and you'd completely forgotten that they were involved in the project. It was like a Russian doll of musical theatre, all to the tune of Sondheim. From Imelda Staunton absolutely giving a powerhouse performance from Gypsy, a return to the role that she played in Chichester and in the West End, or Anna Jane Casey, who appeared in a variety of numbers across the evening and was absolutely spellbinding. This really was a vast array of talent, and every single number was mined to its absolute comedic or emotional core. And I think that's one of the most striking things about Sondheim, and one of the things that really shone through on the evening is just how each of these numbers really does inhabit its own narrative and can tell its own often whimsical, often comedic story. There's tragedy involved, there's hilarity, and it was really nice to be able to celebrate that with these individual pockets taken from shows. Other standouts really for me included Maria Friedman and Michael Ball taking on Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd in quite an extended series of numbers from the show. We really need a full-scale production with Maria Friedman as Mrs. Lovett because she was utterly captivating. I know she's done it in concert, but I think that there is a very, very exciting version of Sweeney Todd waiting for the moment she decides to take to the stage. But in the meantime, of course, she is directing every manner of exciting new production, including Merrily We Roll Along, which is going to be off-Broadway later this year. One of the most exciting things was also seeing lots of new talent take to the stage. I think Holly Ann Hull, for example, was fantastic during the sections that she did for A Little Night Music. It was quite interesting that Helena Bonham Carter made such a fleeting appearance. I think, we could have potentially had more from her, but nevertheless, she was utterly captivating for the few scenes that she was on. Of course, I have to talk about Judi Dench returning to the stage with perhaps one of her trademark classics now, Send in the Clowns, delivering what was an unforgettable performance. I can remember seeing, the sparkle of the diamonds around her necklace sort of radiating out into the auditorium as she was delivering these lines in a melancholic yet rueful sort of way. She said the words, "There ought to be clowns," 3 times, and each time it felt like she was giving a very different thought. Like the first time it was almost a despairing comedy, whereas later it was all like a degree of sadness that was involved. And I think having her being able to interpret Sondheim and tell her own story through Sondheim is something that will truly be unforgettable. I also need to talk about Daniel Fisher's production of Oklahoma, which finally makes its way to the UK at the Young Vic after picking up a Tony Award in 2019. It really dismantles Rodgers and Hammerstein's classic, throwing in so many new complexities and issues whilst throwing out a lot of the baggage. This is a very pared down production that doesn't seem to, conjure up the big musical numbers that we normally expect from Oklahoma, but instead drilling down on these complicated and knotty romances that really exist at the heart of the piece. And one of the most fantastic things about it is you've got this love triangle between Laurie, Judd and Curly, and you never really know which way it's going to play out. For once, you can actually see Judd as a very capable suitor for Laurie, obviously a very flawed human, but at the same time Curly comes across as deeply narcissistic and entitled and unpleasant. Against all of that, you've got this backdrop of nationalism and aggression and gun-toting violence, and put that all together and what you've got is a very toxic environment within which what is normally perceived as quite a romantic love story is given new degrees of unpleasantness. As such, it all comes down to having such a brilliant cast. You've got Arthur Darvill, who is utterly resplendent as always in any musical performance he gives, and of course Anushka Lucas, who I really think is one to watch. She's appeared in so many exciting productions recently, at the National, at the Donmar in Henry V, Jesus Christ Superstar at the Open Air Theatre, and now in Oklahoma in one of the leading roles. So, the world is very much her oyster here. And it's really a production of Oklahoma that you have to see. I think it's going to prove pretty divisive, but at the same time, it sheds light on what is really a very multifaceted piece by Rodgers and Hammerstein that I think over time has sort of calcified into quite a heartwarming and positive tale. So I said I had a few secrets from the Sondheim Gala, so I think I'll wrap up by giving some of those. Chatting to some of the production team, there was a dress rehearsal before the Sondheim Gala took place, and the word was that the cameras that were filming the concert and live streaming it to the Prince Edward were actually positioned right in the centre of the auditorium, in a very different position to where they were in the evening, which meant that the team had two different versions of the production that they could mix together. So hopefully in the long term, when they actually put together a production that they put out, maybe for broadcast, maybe on DVD, maybe on stream, they'll be able to use footage from the dress rehearsal as well as the final cut. The fact that they decided to place these cameras right at the centre, rather than testing the footage at the back of the auditorium, might mean that they very much have this future life planned. And I know that there have been interviews where Cameron Mackintosh says he's very much waiting to hear from each of the agents so that they can get sign-off. But it sounds as though I think the process is slightly further along, so I wouldn't be surprised if we hear about the Sondheim Gala being streamed or being put out, within the next year, really. I think that it's a perfect opportunity to reach a larger audience and to raise a lot more money for the foundation that Stephen Sondheim has set up. To that point, there's been a lot of conversation about the exorbitant price of these tickets, and ticket prices in the West End is very much a concern. We don't want to price out new audiences or audiences that don't come to the theatre regularly. We want people to develop the habit of coming to shows and revelling in the magic of live theatre. At the same time, one of the interesting things about the Sondheim Gala event is that all of the funds will naturally go to the Stephen Sondheim Foundation. If you look through Sondheim's life, what you'll notice is how keen he was to develop new talent. Obvious example being Jonathan Larson, who went on to create Tick, Tick, Boom and Rent, one of the most outstanding new musicals of the last 40 years. And I think that if, Cameron Mackintosh and his team and everyone at the foundation can carry on with that principle and make sure that there's new talent that's being developed in the future, who knows? Someone who bought a £100 and £120 ticket might have inadvertently paid for that additional workshop that allowed someone to stage this brand new musical that allowed them to create the next Hamilton or the next Six or the next Rent. So I think we really need to wait and see how this foundation can really change the world of musical theatre. I think there's a lot of very exciting momentum that could come out of the name of Stephen Sondheim and that could really shape the future of musical theatre by providing a whole new mechanism by which emerging talent can be supported and brought to the stage. So I'm very excited. Give us room.